Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Captain. This is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. For today's video, I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. I don't want to say at the expense, but let's just say we're not laughing at, but we're laughing with Chosen Brad. He's a good longtime friend of mine. I've met him in the Raid community and been with him since pretty much day one, since the early days of Chofly Gaming. I was part of his clan for quite some time now, and been a content creator for a while. So we were talking about this the other night, some of the early days, and I was talking about the worst thumbnail I had ever made was the first one, and he was saying, oh, you should see some of mine, and so I did. And then one particular video caught my eye, and I thought, you know what, let's do a reaction video on one of Chosen's earliest videos. In fact, you can see video number 8. You can see I watched part of it. You know me, I'm an epic guy. I've done top 5s, I've done top 10s, I've done top 20s, I've done worst, best, most underrated, most overrated. I have built 100 of these babies and done videos on them, and I've built probably 50 more and put them in Clan Boss, put them in other different cool comps. I build so many stupid epics for the challenge accepted as well, and I don't normally do videos on the individual champions, but I see this top 10 epic champions and I have to react. Now, full disclaimer, this was 3 years ago, so this was prior to a lot of the great champions entering the game. So we're going to react to it. We're going to talk about it. You see how much I've watched of it? I've watched that much of it. So I'm going to make sure to rewind it. Let's just bring it up here. And let's just hit pause here. And I just got to make sure he's in the frame because I was capturing a different thing here. We'll make sure we get this all nice and neat. We want to see his pretty face. You know, you got to see. I'm probably going to be over him. I'm going to have to move. Oh, Brad, you're so needy. Fine. I'll move over. There he is. What looks like, first off, let the captives go. It looks like he's in like some kind of, like he's gonna have a voice modulator and a mask and be like, we are expecting $20,000 for the release of the captive. You know that. Anyway, he's moved a couple times since then. So, all right, here we go. Let's go. Let's watch this baby. Make sure the volume's up nice and loud.
Epics in the game, so let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, when doing a list,
do you know that's like what, 8 videos in or something? Let's get into it. Since day one, let's get into it. Well, we're getting into it.
Like this, it is really tough because there's a lot of good epics. There's probably 50.
Also, full tan mode. This is back when Chosen actually went out into the sun. He actually saw sunlight. So it's interesting to see
15 to 20 epics that I would have liked to put on this list. But the tough part about doing a video like this is I have to cut some good epics off the list to narrow it down to 10. So, you know, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think, who I left off that I shouldn't have, and who I should have replaced them with and stuff. You know, I always love to hear what people think. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The first champion I want to go over, no, not champions. We got to go to index. First champion I'm going to go over here is the Royal Guard.
All right, well, this is an easy one, especially 3 years ago. Royal Guard still today is an endgame viable champion. His impact has lessened, I wouldn't say significantly, a little bit. It's certainly pulled back because of the advent of Dungeons 21 through 25, but with some pretty good comps and combinations and synergies. Still very usable. Dual Royal Guard seems to be the soup du jour. If you have one, you kind of want to have two. But let's just see what Chosen has to say about it.
In the high elves. So Royal Guard is magic affinity. And if we go over the skills here, attacks one enemy, 50% chance of placing a huge decreased defense buff. So that's a really good.
That is something that we used a lot. And I say we, the community, the greater community. We used his A1 a lot to preface his abilities. Like, for example, on the dragon, and remember, this is before you could actually program skills. So we'd push it through so that he would hopefully have everything else on cooldown, so he'd use his A1 once to put the decreased defense on, 75% chance when booked, and then go. So it's kind of interesting. That, I think, usually there's a lot more debuffers now. The decreased defense, there's a lot more of them in the game now, so you're not really hamstrung like you were 3 years ago.
Good in like dungeons and clan boss, which I like. takedown ability attacks all enemies, and the cool thing about this is damage increases according to enemy max HP. So another really cool ability. Hamstring attack 4 enemies at random.
Keep in mind that people often said, "Oh, you don't even need books." 20% is 20% of the enemy max HP damage. So the damage is actually quite significant. So if you're wondering why your Royal Guard is not hitting as hard as my Royal Guard, it isn't my attack. It's not some kind of hidden stat. It's probably that I have books in mind and you don't. So keep that in mind.
And each hit has a 60% chance of placing a big speed debuff for 2 turns. And then also a 60% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter. So lots of really cool abilities for the Royal Guard that are going to be just useful in general, especially in like dungeons and even versus the clan boss. And then
also with that, with the new dungeons, with the new Fire Knight now 21 through 25, that A3 actually comes in really handy. You can tune it properly. You can bring your Royal Guard in. He's going to use that the first. I used dual rule Royal Guard even before the level tunes. So I would like to see what it looks like when I can program each wave. But bringing that in there so you can use that 4-hit against the shield, and then you have some other champions going between. The other one goes, puts in 4. The 4th one hits the open, puts the decreased speed. So it's a really nice way to, or hopefully puts a decreased speed because it's not 100%.
then a really good R right here.
I think
ally attack
that's
in
the
all
best
dungeons by 35%.
generally
So
useful
Royal
one
Guard
in
is
the game.
definitely a
for
top
epics.
level epic to have available in your
35. I
arsenal.
think there might be a 40%, but
The
it's
second
in, like,
one I want to go
campaign or something
over
stupid.
is in the high elf section. Is going to be Tyrell. Now Tyrell,
He didn't even have Tyrell at the time. Are you kidding me? So let's see what he has to say. Well, I mean, let's see what he has to say.
ability 1, attack 1 enemy 2 times, and each hit has a 40% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack. So we get 2 hits and 2 chances at 40%. That's a really good chance that this is going to apply, and it's a 50% decrease attack. So again, going to be good in dungeons or even in the arena. Clan boss, this is going to be a really good just general ability to make your heroes a lot tougher by decreasing the enemy's attack. A2, we've got Singing Steel, which this says a lot, but basically it's got a 75% chance of placing decreased defense. And then if the target's already under the previous skills debuff, it will place a sleep, which doesn't really apply in dungeons and clan boss and stuff. So that's more of like a PvP type thing. And then Preemptive Strike is going to attack 1 enemy and decrease the turn meter by 50%. And then it also has a stun, a 2-turn stun. So again, going to be a really good PvP ability. The aura on Tyrell is increased allied defense in all battles. So
far he's batting for 2 for 2. Royal Guard, one of the most sought after 3 years ago, and then Tyrell. Tyrell was widely regarded as the best epic in the game, mostly because the AoE decreased defense was on so few champions. And yes, it was available on War Maiden even back then, but the difference with Tyrell is he's a defense-based champion, so he's a lot stronger. He's got more health. He's not attack-based, so he's got more defense. You can build him up for defense. He does more damage while still maintaining that stalwart sense. Also, there were a lot fewer champions and a lot fewer opponents, even NPC opponents or wave opponents, that had ignored defense. So defense was king. Defense was very, very sought after in the early days. And in Clan Boss, this champion, there wasn't a comparable. He didn't, he can't stun and he can't turn me reduce, but his A3 hits really hard. He's got the AoE defense down, which is also a single target, right? Like by nature. And then that attack down. So you had both sought after the attack down and the defense down on the same champion, which was a big deal, which allowed you then to bring in other champions that could do maybe a weaken if you needed it, but mostly just to bring in those poisons. And there was no poison sensitivity back then, so that wasn't a worry. There were very few champions. I think Tyrell back in the early counterattack days, and then you'd have Martyr was, of course, she was the queen of the clan boss, because she had counterattack plus both abilities in a pinch. Though I think one was a 4-turn cooldown, so it was kind of like a backup. But you had a whole host of abilities. So yeah, Tyrell was by far the best epic in the game in my opinion back then. Even Royal Guard, nice to have, but Tyrell, you put him in everything. I used Tyrell to finish Nightmare Campaign. I believe I used him with Sir Nick, which okay, so maybe I used Sir Nick with him. It depends how you look at it, but definitely very strong champion.
So yeah, just a good, solid overall defense character that I had to include in this list. And then the next one I want to go over is also in the high elves, and it's going to be Battle Sage.
I do not like Battle Sage. And it's probably for no good reason. My problem is she doesn't really bring as much to the table as you think. She has an unresistible attack up. Great. She has a speed aura. But as it goes over...
Battle Sage, so, A1 is just your standard
it's an AoE
ability, so which is good. And then your A2 is remove all debuffs on allies. Then place a 50% increase attack buff on all allies, and it cannot be removed.
Decent.
And
cooldown.
It only has one skill up, and it's a -1 cooldown. So I love that because you got a high probability of lowering the cooldown, and getting this ability to be on 3 turns is going to be huge. That's a really good ability to have on a 3-turn cooldown. Then
the revive on death. I was never
which
I was never a big fan of revive on death. The problem with revive on death is it breaks tunes because
it's got a 3-turn window. It's not like a 1 or 2-turn window. So you got a good chance of getting value out of that. And then the ally is instantly revived if killed. The aura is increased ally speed and all.
The thing is she's decent. I think there's just so many champions they've made that have surpassed her. I wouldn't have called her a top 10 champion 3 years ago among epics. I think there's better epics than her in the game. So I would disagree with this. I don't think it's hard to say. I don't get to see a list of champions that were around back then, but I just feel like there's better champions than Battle Sage.
All battles by 19%. So that's a really good aura to have. Speed is great in this game.
I like how he's got the effects around his little window box that are they're like the stock stuff you get from this is the stuff you would get from Shutterstock before they charged you. Like I'm almost looking for the little Shutterstock X there. I've used this. If you check back on my thumbnails, I'm pretty sure I've used the exact same one on a thumbnail as the edging of my thumbnail. So I understand.
And this is going to be your standard all battles plus 19%. So Battle Age is a void hero, so going to be pretty tough to get, but definitely worth it if you are able to get Battle Sage. Then we're going to move into the Sacred Order for number 4.
Let's do this. Sacred Order.
And I'm looking for Frostbringer.
What just happened? Hold on. You cannot pick Frostbringer who doesn't bring the frost. All right. To be fair, there weren't nearly as let's just go back. Let's just go back here. Let's not go that far back. Let's just go to where he chooses. Oh god. Okay.
For number 4.
All right. Frostbringer, Juliana, Talia, Eothar, Phoenix, Lightsworn, Cardinal. This was pre-buff Hope, so I get that. A poor dude has what's her name in? Unfortunate, but I just look at that and I think just about anyone's better than Frostbringer. She's better now, but her kit was so. It was one of the ones even before this was the start. I think she was like the precursor. I feel to the if I call it the but if. It's the if button that they need to take off there. If you remember one of my previous videos because of her conditionals. But let's go in
and I'm looking for Frostbringer.
In his defense, I did use her in Clan Boss early on, and she did have some success. But she doesn't boost turn meter. She just speed increases, and that's the difference. Apothecary, a rare, boosts turn meter as well as speed, and that is speed buff. So that's the big thing I was griped about, and the fact she still doesn't bring the frost.
A1 is attacks 2 enemies at random, a 15% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. So Again, really good in like dungeons versus heroes like the Spirit Keep, where they like to heal a lot. You're gonna
5
have
books.
This is the A1 ability, so and it's
15 until you
100%
jump
heal
all
reduction.
the way down to the
That's
bottom.
a really good ability to have on A1.
A lot of heal reduction.
A2, attack 3 times at random, place a 60% decrease defense buff
and
for 2 turns if the target has heal reduction. So
it requires the skill, which would not be used before it. In the order of events of Frostbringer, she's going to use her A3 into her A2 into her A1. So she's not going to have the heal reduction until it's a 4 turn. Say you got to book 3 turn cooldown. So she's going to take 1 turn, 2 turns, then 3, 4, 5 turns before potentially she can put a decreased defense. Unless you have another heal reduction champion in your arsenal, which you could do and could synergize.
So going to be really important to proc this A1 effect and then save this ability for when you have that up. Then A3 is
funny
placed
thing is
30% increased
I'm giving
speed
shit.
and 50% increased attack.
I'm giving shit, but I used her.
All allies for 2 turns. That is a huge buff to your allies because that 50% increased attack is good by itself, and then 30% speed is just puts it over the top. And then you know what I like is abilities that you can get to the cooldown effect quick. So you see level 2 -1 cooldown. I like that about that ability. The aura for Frostbringer is increased ally defense in dungeon.
I will say about her effective HP is through the roof, because not only is she running, and you can see, okay, I won't lie to you, I'm going to run my second clan boss key in the background. You can see that not only does she have over 20k HP, but with over 1,000 defense, almost 1,100 defense. That's the effective HP you can build her out for at 110 speed. That part is pretty impressive, which allows her to be used in certain comps really effectively. And actually, with her buff, there are ways to use her in the clan boss actually pretty effectively. The only thing barring her from being really good is that stupid heal reduction
by 33%.
That's
Number
a stretch.
5, I'm going to be staying in the sacred order and going to Juliana.
All right, hear him out. Because I know most of you who are playing today and may not have played to 3 years ago are looking at Juliana and going, he's got to be he's lost his mind. This is ridiculous. Why didn't we see this? This is a sign of crazy. But back then, Juliana was absolutely bonkers for the clan boss because we didn't have speed tunes. We were guessing. We were basically slapping teams together and trying to synergize as best we can. And then you would kind of do simple calculations. You're like, oh, Juliana, she's got 103 speed. I can get her up to 171. She's got a speed boost on her A1, so we want to make sure that she doesn't jump over our debuffer. So we'll do, things like that. But she was actually really good.
Juliana has a lot of utility here. The A1 is attack one enemy.
Very good.
Attack one enemy 2 times. Each crit fills this champion's turn meter by 10%. So if you've got high crit on Juliana, you're going to be able to fill that turn meter by up to 20% just with your A1
my favorite
ability. So
it's
going to be Juliana's going to have a lot of speed if you're able to crit.
Like an HDR.
And then lethal partner A2, 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion, and then attack 1 enemy 2 times. That's really good. Place a 5% poison debuff on the target for 3 turns if this attack is critical. A 5% poison for 3 turns is huge. That's going to be really good versus the clan boss if you can get that to pro.
So this is what I like to call the most useless skill in the game. The poison, very good, right? That's why she was so good against clan boss. And this Romero thing, actually, if I did a video on it, Romero with Juliana it's a pretty strong combo. Romero is a little bit underrated, but when you include the fact that he can get her to ignore 50% defense and she actually hits pretty hard, it was actually a lot better than I think people realize. But the problem here is it places a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion, then attacks 1 enemy 2 times. It doesn't say how many turns the increased crit rate is, which makes it think it's 1. So it's a 5-turn cooldown with a 1-turn increased crit rate. Well, that's useless because you've got other abilities that require crits. So really, really poor skill. And I talked about this in error with Whisper, is that she drops her crit, but actually she doesn't, because if you self-buff, that turn isn't included, thankfully. So she does get her next turn as a crit in the case of Juliana, but because it's a 5-turn cooldown, this really needs to be a 3-turn cooldown and a 2-turn poison, I think would make it on par.
proc. Now, if you pair Juliana with Romero, who I don't have on this list, but it's worth noting, we'll ignore 50% of target defense if Romero is on the same team. Then A3 is attack one enemy, remove a random buff, has a 75% chance of placing an HP burn for 3 turns. So again, very good versus something like the clan boss. And I like heroes that are good against the clan boss because I think we all
back then
want to
amazing.
feel
Now we
valuable
know
to
things
our
like
team.
5
So
turns.
it's really
It's
good to have heroes in your arsenal that are good versus the clan boss.
Speed her up
you
to
can
a
help
5-3
out
or some
not only
kind
yourself
of
but your team
crazy
in general. So
speed
abilities
roll
like this
that
make
she would be
Juliana
doing
really strong
every
to
3
have.
turns or something.
The aura is increased crit rate in the arena by 20%. I wish that this was increased crit rate in all battles by like 15% instead of 20. I think that would just make her flow a lot better and be better in general. But still, Juliana, a great hero. All right, so number 6, we're going to be moving into
I'm not going to lie to you. Out of that group, I think I still, even back then, like Talia better than Juliana. Talia was a very early game arena boss, so I think he really missed out on that call, giving Juliana the nod over Talia. But to be fair, there's about a 3-month gap between when he played and I played, and in that 3 months, I think there was a shift on Juliana. I think Juliana was top tier here. And by the time I got here, they were already starting to shift into Talia as an arena nuker, and then you'll see Ray a lot back then. And now, of course, it's completely different meta. But just for kind of insight.
And I'm looking for. Let's see if I can hit it on the first swing here. There we go, Kalia.
Look at this.
Okay, so A1 crit rate in flow a lot.
Look, come on. First of all, there's 3 rows now, so that shows you how many they've added. Look at how few champions there are. There's 5 epics in barbarians, and he's going for Kalia, and Kalia is trash.
See if I can hit it on
I
the
gave her an
first
unfair.
swing
I gave her a redo, and she's
there
not
we go,
bad.
Kalia.
But
okay,
she's not,
so
she's
A1
not great. I don't know. This is
going to be attack one enemy with a 30%
I agree with
chance
Juliana,
of
but it should be
HP
Juliana,
burn
Talia,
for 2
not
turns.
Kalia.
Having an HP
Wrong
burn
Alia.
debuff on your A1 ability, that's great. And then also
problem is 12,000
is going to be buffed even further.
HP.
Healing herself
defense.
if she's on the same team as Ater, which I don't have on this list. A2 is going to be an AoE, attack all enemies with a 50% chance of placing a 100% healing debuff for 2 turns. That's a really good ability there.
It was a really good ability. Now it's a trash ability because
and then our A3 is attack 3 times at random, and each hit is going to have a 60% chance of placing an HP
random at 60%
HP burn debuff for 2
cooldown.
turns. So if we see Kalia has the 2 HP burn debuffs,
she's actually received a bit
on
of a buff,
A1 and 1 on A3
so,
with an
I
ally
don't agree.
of increased ally
I don't
attack
agree
in
with
all
this
battles by 25%. That's a really good aura. So the 2 HP burn abilities
but her multipliers weren't
just general all-encompassing
that good.
ally attack aura there makes Kalia a great
Phoenix was a big miss on this
hero
list,
to have
by the
for
way.
your
I
arsenal.
think, but I mean,
all right, for number 7,
when I
we're going to be switching over to the Orcs.
I basically said, "Hey, people are missing this. People are
we're going to be
losing.
going for Vrask.
Vrask
has one of the coolest abilities on this list that I'll get to here in a minute. Over to the Orcs. And we're going to be going for Vrask. Vrask has
said it right. That's no fair.
One of the coolest abilities on this list that I'll get to here in a little bit. But the A1 is going to be attack 1 enemy, fill this champion's turn meter by 20% if critical. So that is a huge buff. Most of the time, you'll see buffs like this, fill it by 10% or something. But 20% if critical, that is big. On A2, it's going to be just lightning strike. It's a hard-hitting single target attack. Nothing too special to write home about there. But this ability, Cannibalism, as a passive is just amazing in my opinion. Heal all allies by 10% of this hero's max HP when inflicting a crit. So
yeah, that's a good call.
The
Especially
worst
back
version
then.
of this buff is heal all allies by 10% of their HP. Because then you have like attack.
I would say no, but I think your heart would be in the right place.
They don't get as much value out of
he
that
is so
heal.
solid.
But when the heal is
he's just one of those champions.
Heal allies by percent of this champion's max HP. That means on that character you can stack HP, and it will affect all of the other champions in your party and heal them even more. So this is a great passive ability to have. The aura is increased ally defense in dungeons by 33%. So Vrask is more of like playing the sustain battle. but a really cool, a really well-designed hero to have in your army.
Dungeon defense.
Now we're going to be shifting over to the Dark Elves. For number 8, I'm going to be, let's see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job on these first clicks because these aren't even...
Especially, like, roll back. Think about how many nuking champion. Candrafon, Trunda. I'm trying to think of all the different... There's been so many nuking champions that have been added to the game. But prior to that, it was Whack-A-Mole Ethos. It was Talia in the arena. It was Ray if you had her. Foley was kind of... There was something wrong. I can't remember what was wrong with Foley. They've updated him since then, but back then, right after Fusion, there was something absurd about his AI, and it was before you could program it, that he wouldn't do something, or something didn't work. So even Foley was kind of a weak nuker in comparison. So there wasn't a lot of nukers, and Lua was a sleeper nuker, and boy, she hit hard.
Even heroes I have. This is just, I had pulled my notebook out. I'll see if I can show it here. I might as well show it. This is kind of how I do videos like this. So I've got my...
Oh my God.
Got my notebook where I have a bunch of sheets like that, and I go over all the epics in the game and kind of all of their abilities and do my own homework and come to my own conclusions. But yeah, I don't know why I decided to randomly throw that in here. But
I mean, it's funny. Like 3 years ago, think about it. We didn't have these champions. He had to bring in champions, most of which he didn't have on his account. And there was no account sharing. There was none of that back then. 3.5 years ago now. Yeah, it's just looking at the numbers, hearing what other people say, reaching out to the community and saying, well, what is this? Oh, wow, that does hit hard. Or running into those sort of things. So it was really hard
anyway,
to do these videos.
So we've got Lua here, and Lua's A1 is going to be attack one enemy.
She's one of my favorites. I might dust her out.
The damage to all enemies if critical. So going to be important to stack crit on Lua. And kind of a cool AoE attack there to have on A1.
Still holds up to the mystique.
And then this ability is pretty cool. Hail of Arrows is going to attack all enemies 3 times. So if the enemy team has 4 champions, like in the arena, you're attacking all of them 3 times. So you attack 4, and then twice, and then 3. So 4 times 3 is 12 hits that she's going to be doing. So 12 chances to proc a critical hit. If her crit hit chance is 50%, which is pretty realistic to get to, now you're talking about 6 crits. 6 times 2.5 is what? 18. 6 times 2 is 12.
There's so many good...
It's 18. So
there's so many good epics in the game now.
18% of Lua's HP.
Most of these champions, Tyrell, I still argue, is in.
So not only is it AoE,
depending on your
but it's going to be healing her about 18% of her HP. So that's a very good A2 ability. Lucky Shot is going to attack one enemy, and this attack fully decreases the turn meter. Will ignore shield and block debuff. That's a game. I like abilities that can really swing the flow of a battle, and that is a very game-changing ability.
Lua, I think, should be more back in meta than we think, because I think people forget this hits really hard and it goes through block damage. So think of all those, not unkillable because they take damage, they just can't be killed, but all the block damage. Anytime you see a block damage like a Sandlash Survivor, why not bring in someone like Lua? She's Void Affinity. She can hit really hard. She has an AoE. She can follow up against the block damage champions. It is worth noting that she is a good counter to the block damage. I think, is it Kyoku who also puts up a block damage? So there are some more block damage champions hitting the arena. Might be worthwhile.
Kind of is rough about it is it's really tough to get to that cooldown. It's going to take, you got to get all the way down to level 6 of this ability.
Imagine complaining about 5 books. God, those were the days.
You get to the cooldown. I don't like that. I like abilities where you can get to the cooldown quickly. So you're going to have to
he was so young and hopeful back in the 12-book days.
GG. But that's still a game-changing ability, and I didn't want to leave her off this list. Now we're going to go staying in the Dark Elves, and we're going to go with Luria.
Wow. Luria did not age well.
A1 is really cool. It's one of the more interesting A1s because...
So I've done a video on her. She doesn't age well, and the reason is her A1 is an or. Again, if or. The if or is basically the cousin of if. And, places a decreased defense. Yes, or a heal reduction. Or a decreased speed. And it's, 75% chance, and it's 6 books. She does have this AoE freeze, and she does hit pretty hard.
It's got a lot going on.
She's just
here.
really hard to keep alive.
Decreased defense, heal reduction, and decreased speed. So three different
really
things
good in
going
level
on
20
there. It's
dungeons,
a 50%
especially
chance
like
of placing a huge decreased debuff,
falls off
or
because of her
100%
survivability.
heal reduction,
And she
or
doesn't
30%
have
decreased
that
speed.
next level damage.
You know, you don't really know what you're gonna get, but they're all good. Those are all good things to proc for an A1 ability. So pretty cool. A2 is attack all enemies with a 50% chance of placing a freeze debuff. So
did they update
more of
her?
like
She's
a
100%
PvP
now, maybe?
arena type ability. And enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. That can be tough to kind of line up and be the last hit on somebody.
Maybe they didn't change
but definitely doable and a cool ability to proc there on your A2. The A3 is going to be attack one enemy, remove all buffs, and an 80% chance of placing a block
5 turn
for
is
2
the
turns.
killer
so
there. It's
you
a
can
good
really
ability. I don't like it being a single target, but
an enemy
you
on
can't
the
make everything
opposing
AoE or else
side,
you'd be OP.
Or that
removes
is
all
not.
buffs
It's going to be just remove all the buffs, and then a chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns.
Be a
so
good
Luri is going to be really
Canderfawn
good in like a PvP
counter, even in today's day and age. She's proper affinity.
And then for the last one, we're going to go number 10.
So if you catch
Undead
I guess
Hordes,
you'd have to catch him on the cycle
Gorgorab.
because he's going to put up his.
And kind of an interesting note about him,
Gorgrab,
it looks like his left hand isn't even holding.
Gorgrab is still could be argued to be top 10 because he's such a good utility champion among epics.
Little scepter.
They don't make epics like him quite
so
anymore.
I don't know if that's supposed to look like that.
Come
or
close,
if,
Ursula.
That's like a
but I mean,
design
you guys got speed aura, turn meter boost, revive.
A1 is going to be attack one
and removes a random buff. And all reasonable, like 75% chance of book, but you don't need to book them to have on your
A1 to keep your enemy from snowballing.
Look at the survivability: 17, 10k attack.
Fill the turn meter of all allies by 15%, and a 50% increase attack buff
on a 1 turn,
on all allies for 2 turns. And then look at that, we can get to our reduced cooldown quickly.
Yeah,
this is the first upgrade. We can get this thing down to 3 turns pretty easily, and that is huge to fill the turn meter of all allies, and then a 50% increase attack buff. So that's a really good A2 ability. And then our A3 is also one of the cooler abilities on this list. We're going to revive all allies that have passed away, and then heal all allies that are currently living or were just resurrected for 25%. So we're going to resurrect, heal all. That's a really good ability. A little bit tough to get to the cooldown there. It's going to take a few upgrades, but if you can get that thing down to 5 turns
4 books.
and get this one down, then
Brad, it's 4 books.
Can really snowball into a GG hero. And then
you don't get that anymore. I know. It's just like the age of Aquarius,
increase
right?
Ally speed in the arena by 23%. Couple that with these abilities
so full of
fill
hope.
the turn
So
meter
full
and
of
stuff.
book hope.
Gorgorab is gonna be
so young and bright eyed.
If you invest
so
in him, he can really
color.
shine in scenarios like the arena. So yeah, that's gonna do it for my version 1.0.
All right, so let's talk about overall pretty good tier list. Considering he didn't even have most of the champions, which not a shot against him. That's the way things were in this game 3.5 years ago. Pretty strong, or 3 years, and I guess you see April 14th, so 3 years and a couple months. But yeah, I think overall pretty solid. The 2 that are completely out of place even for back then, I would argue, definitely Battle Sage and Kalia need to be kicked out. I think Talia's better. I think Cardinal's better. Maybe even Frostbringer, I think, was a bit of a stretch. I think those are the 3 that I don't agree with. Interestingly enough, I would say only one of these 10 still deserve a legitimate top 10 placing, and that's Tyrell. And it's tough too, because Tyrell is one of those 5 that any one of them could be and we talked about this in other videos, but any one of them of the epics could be top 1 or 2, right, in the game. But once you get one, the rest of them are less of a priority. And that's Ugo. Well, it's all the defense down champions. There's more, but the ones that everyone really likes are Duck, Ugo, Stag Knight, Tyrell, Madame Saris. There's also like Gomlock and Siege Hulk, and I'm missing a couple others that they've added into different groups. Thylesia. But I find that because those ones were nuke champions, they're not. It's like War Maiden. you don't want an attack champion to be your debuffer. You want your attack champion to be an attack champion. You want your debuffer to survive. So that's why you've got 2 defense and you've got a support with ridiculous amounts of HP. And then you've got another support who's got heals and a block buffs with her ability. And then you've got a buff stripper and a fear thing. Like, it's just, they're just heads and tails better because of what they bring with them, along with their defense, decreased defense, including Tyrell, obviously. So I think that one's legitimate. I like the list other than the 3. There's obviously some notable missing there. You know, Faceless would be another one from Knight's Revenant's been around since day 1 that I'd really like to see on this sort of list. I'm trying to think of the other ones back then for epics. Remember, there's no Shadowkin, there's no dwarves. I think Cardinal's the one that strikes. Talia and Cardinal for back then strike me as huge misses. Cardinal, I mean, full revive with full turn meter and health. That's stupid. And then of course, you know, Talia back then was a she smashed people. Oh, Phoenix. I would say those are the 3 that I think are missing from the list. And it's fun to see that that so many of those that I do agree with would be on the list now. I just don't think they're on the list anymore. But I do want to play with Lua again, so maybe we will. So there it is. Thanks to Chosen for being a good sport. And I pre-warned him that I was going to do this. I think he might have thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. Here it is. Thank you for joining the video. What did you think? Did you play back then? Let me know in the comments down below if you did play back then. From memory, what do you think was a missed champion that possibly could have made the 1.0 April 2019 list of the top 10 epics in the game? Love to hear your thoughts and comments. And most importantly, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate your support. And be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.